Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. Victor Barton had learned long ago that life's cruelest lessons often arrived wrapped in the most ordinary moments. The phone call came on a Friday afternoon in late September, 5 years ago. His daughter Cassie's voice had that familiar edge of desperation he'd heard too many times before. The same tone she'd used when she crashed her first car, when she dropped out of college, when her marriage fell apart. "Dad, I just need one weekend. Please. I've got this job opportunity in Nevada, and I can't bring Jay. He's 4 now. He'll be fine with you. You're so good with him anyway." Victor had stood in his kitchen, the phone pressed to his ear, watching his 4-year-old grandson build a tower of blocks in the living room. The boy had his mother's dark hair, but his grandfather's steady, thoughtful eyes. Even then, Jay had this way of staring at his constructions with absolute focus, making sure each piece was perfectly aligned before adding the next. "How long is this opportunity?" Victor had asked. "Just the weekend. I'll be back Monday, Tuesday latest. I promise, Dad." That was the last promise Cassie ever kept, showing up that Friday evening with Jay's little dinosaur backpack and a hasty kiss on her son's forehead. After that, the promises became lies, became excuses, became silence. The first month, Victor made excuses for her. Cassie was pursuing her dreams, finding herself, dealing with things. The second month, when Jay started asking why Mommy hadn't called, Victor began to understand the depth of her abandonment. By month 6, when her phone number disconnected and her social media went dark, Victor stopped making excuses entirely. He'd been a high school history teacher for 32 years before retiring, and in that time he'd seen plenty of troubled kids and broken families. But this was different. This was his own daughter abandoning her own son, and Victor felt that failure like a physical weight. Where had he gone wrong? What had he missed in raising Cassie that made walking away from her child seem like an acceptable option? But those questions became less important than the small boy who needed breakfast every morning, who needed help with his alphabet, who had nightmares about his mother not coming back. Victor pushed his own hurt aside and did what needed doing. The dinosaur backpack, meant for one weekend, was eventually replaced as Jay outgrew it. The toothbrush Victor bought for, just in case, became the permanent one in the bathroom. The spare bedroom, hastily cleaned out for a temporary stay, became Jay's room, decorated with posters of planets and dinosaurs and, eventually, superheroes. Victor enrolled Jay in kindergarten, then first grade, then second. He packed lunches with notes tucked inside. He learned to French braid hair after watching YouTube videos, because Jay's hair grew long and tangled. He attended parent-teacher conferences alone, watching other couples hold hands while he sat with his worn notebook, taking down every comment about his grandson's progress. And Jay thrived, not despite the abandonment, but perhaps because Victor refused to let it define him. The boy was smart, scary smart actually. By age 7, he was reading at a 5th grade level. By 8, he developed this uncanny ability to see through adult bullshit with a clarity that sometimes startled Victor. "Grandpa," Jade had said one evening during dinner, maybe 2 years into their arrangement, "Mommy's not coming back, is she?" Victor had frozen with his fork halfway to his mouth. "What makes you say that?" "Because people who want to be somewhere find a way. You taught me that. You always say where there's a will, there's a way." Jay had said it matter-of-factly, without tears, just observation. "Mommy doesn't have the will." Victor had set down his fork and reached across the table to hold his grandson's small hand. "Then we have to have enough will for both of us, buddy. Deal." Deal. That night, something shifted in Victor. He stopped mourning the daughter who'd left and started celebrating the grandson who'd stayed. He threw himself into being the parent Jay deserved. They developed routines, traditions, inside jokes. Saturday mornings were pancake mornings, with increasingly elaborate designs. Evenings were reading time, with Victor doing all the voices for different characters until Jay was old enough to take over some himself. Victor taught Jay chess when he was 6, expecting it would take years for the boy to grasp strategy. Jay beat him for the first time at age 8. Victor started a journal with Jay, encouraging him to write down his thoughts, feelings, observations. "Smart men," Victor told him, know the value of documentation. The journal became Jay's constant companion. Victor noticed the boy writing in it frequently, especially after school or when something bothered him. He never pushed to read it. That was Jay's private space. But he made sure his grandson knew that having a record of your life, your truth, was powerful. Through it all, Cassie's absence was felt but not discussed obsessively. Victor made sure Jay understood that his mother's choice wasn't his fault, wasn't about him being unlovable or difficult. It was about Cassie's own brokenness, her own inability to handle responsibility. Adrienne O'Connell, Jay's third-grade teacher, had become something of a friend to Victor over the years. She was a sharp-minded woman in her mid-40s who'd seen her share of complicated family situations. After one particularly good parent-teacher conference, she'd invited Victor for coffee, and he'd accepted, grateful for adult conversation that didn't revolve around cartoon characters or homework struggles. "That boy of yours is extraordinary," she'd said, stirring cream into her coffee. "But I worry about what happens if his mother ever shows up again." "So do I," Victor had admitted. "Every damn day. Have you thought about making the custody arrangement official? Getting legal guardianship?" "I've thought about it. But part of me kept hoping Cassie would come back, would get her act together." Victor had stared into his coffee. Stupid, right? Not stupid. Human. That conversation had been 8 months ago. Victor had consulted with a lawyer, Floyd Koch, a straightforward man with a no-nonsense approach to family law. Floyd had laid out the options. Victor could file for guardianship, could petition for abandonment, could build a case for permanent custody. But it would mean officially declaring his daughter an unfit mother, putting it on legal record that she'd failed. "I know she's your daughter," Floyd had said, leaning back in his office chair. "But at some point, you need to protect that boy legally. What happens if she shows up and wants him back? Right now, legally, she's still his mother. She has rights." Victor had left that meeting with paperwork in hand, fully intending to file. But something held him back. Maybe it was the last thread of hope that Cassie would somehow redeem herself. Maybe it was not wanting to be the father who destroyed his daughter's legal relationship with her child, even if she'd already destroyed the emotional one. That hesitation, that last shred of mercy, came back to haunt him on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. Victor was at the kitchen table helping Jay with his math homework when the doorbell rang. It was 4:30, and they weren't expecting anyone. Jay looked up from his fraction worksheet, and Victor ruffled his hair. "Keep working on number 7. I'll get it." Through the front door's window, Victor could see a woman in expensive sunglasses and a crisp autumn coat. It took him a moment, a long, disorienting moment, to recognize his own daughter. Cassie looked different. Her hair was professionally styled, her makeup perfect, her clothes the kind of carefully casual expensive that screamed money. Behind her, parked in the driveway, was a gleaming black BMW SUV. And standing next to it, looking impatient, was a man Victor had never seen before, tall, gym fit, wearing designer jeans and an attitude. Victor opened the door slowly. "Hi, Dad." Cassie's smile was brilliant and completely artificial. She removed her sunglasses with a theatrical flourish. Surprise. 5 years. 5 years of silence. And she greets him with surprise, like she'd just been on a long vacation. "Cassie." Victor kept his voice level controlled. His teacher voice, the one that made students sit up straight. "Wasn't expecting you." I know. I should have called ahead, but I wanted it to be a surprise." "Is Jay here? I'm dying to see my baby." "My baby." The words landed like a slap. Victor gripped the doorframe. "He's doing homework." "Oh, that's fine. I'll just peek in," and Cassie moved a step past him, but Victor shifted his weight, blocking her path. "You can't just show up after 5 years and walk in like nothing happened." Cassie's smile flickered. "Dad, don't be dramatic. I know I've been gone, but I'm here now. Things have changed. I've changed." She gestured back toward the man by the car. "That's Seth. Seth Cherry. We got married 6 months ago. He's a financial consultant, very successful. We have a beautiful home in Henderson, Nevada. A big yard, a pool, great schools. I'm finally in a position to give Jay the life he deserves." The audacity of it struck Victor like a physical blow. The life he deserves. as if the last 5 years with Victor had been some kind of punishment, some inferior existence Jay needed to be rescued from. Grandpa, Jay's voice came from behind him. Who's at the door? Victor turned slightly, keeping himself between his grandson and Cassie. Jay stood in the hallway, his math homework forgotten, staring at the woman in the doorway with an expression that was heartbreakingly complicated: recognition, confusion, hurt, and something harder to define. Jay. Cassie's voice went high and sweet, the tone adults use with much younger children. Oh my God, look at you. You're so big. Come give mommy a hug. Jay didn't move. He looked at Victor, then back at Cassie, and Victor could see the gears turning in his grandson's sharp mind. Hi, Mom, Jay said quietly, not running to her, not crying, just acknowledging her presence with the same tone he might use for a substitute teacher. Cassie's smile faltered again. Aren't you happy to see me? I missed you so much, baby. It's been 5 years, Jay said, with that unnerving clarity he sometimes displayed. You didn't call, not even on my birthday. Victor watched his daughter's face cycle through emotions, annoyance, guilt, frustration, before landing back on that brittle smile. I know, sweetie, and mommy is so sorry, but I had to get my life together first. I had to make sure I could give you everything you deserve. And now I can. You're going to love our house. You'll have your own room, your own bathroom. There's a game room, and Seth says we can get you whatever gaming system you want. Seth had wandered up to the porch now, standing possessively behind Cassie. Up close, Victor could see the man was maybe 35, with the kind of practice charm that made Victor's instincts scream warnings. You must be Victor, Seth said, extending a hand. I've heard a lot about you. Cassie's very grateful for everything you've done. The way he said done made it sound past tense. Finished. Services no longer required. Victor didn't take the hand. What exactly do you want, Cassie? I want my son back, Dad. That's what I want. I'm his mother. You were his mother. For the first 4 years. Then you left. I didn't leave. I needed time. And now that time is over. I'm ready to be his mom again. Jay had moved closer to Victor now, not hiding exactly, but definitely positioning himself. Victor put a protective hand on his grandson's shoulder. Jay's been enrolled in school here for 5 years. He has friends, routines, stability. You can't just uproot him. Actually, Seth interjected, pulling out his phone, we checked with a family lawyer. Cassie never legally gave up her parental rights. She's still Jay's legal guardian. She has every right to take him. The way Seth delivered this information, smug, certain, made Victor's blood run cold. This wasn't a spontaneous visit. This was planned. They'd done their homework, consulted lawyers, prepared their attack. Why now? Victor asked, looking directly at Cassie. Why come back now after all this time? Cassie's mask slipped for just a second, and Victor saw something calculating in her eyes. But then she recovered, dabbing at perfectly dry eyes. Because I've been thinking about him every single day. Because I'm his mother and I miss him. Is that so hard to believe? Yes, Jay said simply. It is. All 3 adults looked at him. Jay's face was calm, almost analytical. If you thought about me every day, you would have called, or texted, or sent a birthday card. You didn't. So either you're lying now, or you're lying to yourself about what you actually felt. Either way, it's not real. Seth's face darkened. Kid, that's no way to talk to your mother. It's the truth, Jay said, unflinching. Grandpa taught me the truth matters, even when it's uncomfortable. Victor felt pride surge through him, mixed with dread. His smart, brave grandson was standing up for himself. But Victor knew this confrontation was far from over. Cassie's composure cracked. I'm your mother, Jay. I gave birth to you. I raised you for 4 years. And then you left for 5, Jay interrupted. That's more time gone than you were ever here. Okay, this is getting out of hand. Seth stepped forward, his voice hardening. Look, we're trying to be civil about this, but the bottom line is Cassie has legal rights. We can do this the easy way, where Jay packs his things and we work out a transition schedule, or we can do this the hard way and get lawyers involved. The hard way, Victor said immediately, because I'm not letting you take him anywhere until we settle this properly. Cassie's face flushed with anger. You can't keep him from me. He's my son. Then prove it. Prove you're here because you love him and not for some other reason. What other reason could there possibly be? Victor studied his daughter's face, noting the expensive clothes, the designer purse, the calculated way she and Seth exchanged glances. Something wasn't adding up. Cassie had always been selfish, irresponsible, but she'd never been motivated enough to fight for anything that required real effort. Coming back for Jay after 5 years, armed with lawyers and legal threats, that took planning, motivation. "I don't know yet," Victor said, "but I want to find out." Seth pulled out a business card and thrust it at Victor. "Our lawyer's information. You'll be hearing from him by end of week. Cassie is willing to give you 2 weeks to prepare Jay for the transition. After that, we're taking him one way or another." They left in their expensive car, leaving Victor and Jay standing in the doorway. Victor's hand was still on his grandson's shoulder, and he felt the boy trembling slightly. "Grandpa," Jay's voice was smaller now, younger. "Can she really take me?" Victor guided Jay back inside and closed the door. He knelt down so he was eye level with his grandson. "I won't let that happen without a fight. But buddy, I need you to be honest with me. If part of you wants to go with her, to try being with your mom again." "No." Jay's response was immediate and firm. "This is my home. You're my home. I don't care about game rooms or pools. I care about Saturday pancakes and reading before bed and someone who actually wanted me around for the last 5 years." Victor pulled Jay into a hug, feeling his grandson's thin arms wrap around him tightly. "Then we fight," Victor said. Together, that night, after Jay was asleep, Victor pulled out Floyd Koch's business card and dialed his number, leaving a voicemail. "Floyd, it's Victor Barton. My daughter showed up. We need to talk. Tomorrow, if possible." Then he sat at his kitchen table, the same table where he'd helped with 5 years of homework, and tried to think. What was Cassie's angle? Why now? What had changed? He pulled out his laptop and did what any modern grandfather would do. He started searching. It took less than 10 minutes to find Cassie's social media profiles, no longer private. Her Facebook was a carefully curated display of her new life. Photos with Seth at expensive restaurants, vacation pictures from the Caribbean, check-ins at luxury spas. She'd reinvented herself as a wealthy consultant's wife, and apparently that image was important to her. Victor scrolled further back, looking for clues. 6 months ago, Cassie and Seth's wedding photos. 8 months ago, pictures of them at what looked like a corporate event. 10 months ago, Victor stopped, leaning closer to the screen. A photo of Cassie with an elderly woman at what appeared to be a hospital. The caption read, "Visiting Seth's mother. Strong women inspire me." He clicked on Seth's profile, which was more professionally focused. Financial consultant, partner at Cherry & Associates, impressive credentials. But there, buried in an article from a local Nevada business journal, was something interesting. Seth Cherry, recently engaged to Cassandra Barton, credits his late mother's influence for his business success. "She taught me family comes first," Cherry says. Late mother. So Seth's mother had died. Recently, based on the timeline. Victor kept digging, moving from social media to public records, from LinkedIn to local news. At 2 a.m., bleary-eyed and running on coffee, he found it. Marjorie Cherry, Seth's mother, had died 3 months ago. And according to her obituary, she'd been a wealthy woman, having run a successful real estate business for 40 years. The obituary mentioned surviving family members, including grandson Jay Barton, alongside Seth. Grandson? Victor stared at the screen, pieces clicking into place. Seth's mother had somehow learned about Jay's existence before she died. Maybe Cassie had mentioned him. Maybe she'd seen photos. And now, 3 months after Marjorie Cherry's death, Cassie suddenly wanted her son back. He searched for Marjorie Cherry's will, finding a local news article about the estate. Most of it was standard, properties divided, charitable donations made. But there was a trust mentioned, established for future grandchildren's education and welfare. There it was. The motivation. The money. Victor sat back, his mind racing. If Jay was legally recognized as Seth's stepson, as Marjorie Cherry's step-grandson, he'd potentially have access to that trust. Cassie wasn't here because she'd suddenly developed maternal instincts. She was here because her son had become valuable. The question was, how to prove it? And more importantly, how to protect Jay from being used as a pawn in whatever financial game Cassie and Seth were playing. Victor looked at the ceiling, thinking about his grandson sleeping upstairs, that smart boy who'd been abandoned once already. He thought about Cassie's calculated smile, Seth's smug certainty, their lawyer's business cards sitting on his kitchen table. Then Victor did what he'd always taught his students to do when facing a difficult problem. He made a plan. First thing tomorrow, he'd meet with Floyd Koch. He'd lay out everything he'd found, everything he suspected. They'd begin building a case for permanent custody based on abandonment, based on Jay's best interests, based on the fact that for 5 years, Victor had been the only consistent parent in that boy's life. But more than that, Victor needed evidence of Cassie's true motives. He needed to prove she was here for money, not love. And for that, he'd need help. He thought about Adrienne O'Connell, about her offer months ago to assist if things got complicated. He thought about the school counselor, Mrs. Dolores Hensley, who'd worked with Jay during his first difficult year. He thought about the pediatrician, Dr. Charles Silva, who documented every checkup, every milestone, every moment of Jay's health and growth under Victor's care. 5 years of documentation. 5 years of stability. 5 years of love. Cassie might have legal rights on paper, but Victor had something more powerful, the truth. And if his grandson had taught him anything over the years, it was that smart people knew the value of documentation. Victor opened his phone and started making a list of everyone who'd witnessed Jay's life over the past 5 years. Teachers, neighbors, coaches, doctors. People who could testify to the life Victor had built for his grandson, to the parent he'd become when his daughter had failed. The fight was on, and Victor Barton had no intention of losing. The next morning, Victor sat in Floyd Koch's office, laying out everything he'd discovered. Floyd was a man in his early 60s with steel gray hair and the kind of perpetually skeptical expression that made him excellent at his job. "So let me make sure I understand," Floyd said, tapping his pen against his notepad. "Your daughter abandons her kid for 5 years, marries into money, and suddenly wants him back right around the time she'd potentially gain access to her new mother-in-law's trust fund if said kid is legally recognized as part of the family. That's my theory. It's a good theory. Proving it is another matter." Floyd leaned back in his chair. "Here's what we're up against. Cassie never legally terminated her parental rights. She never signed anything, never went through any formal process. In the eyes of the law, she's still Jay's mother, even though she hasn't seen him in 5 years. Even then. Now, we can argue abandonment, and we should. We can document that you've been the sole provider, caregiver, everything for the past 5 years. We can get testimony from teachers, doctors, neighbors. We can build a compelling case that Jay's best interests are served by staying with you." But Victor heard the hesitation in Floyd's voice. But family courts generally favor reunification with biological parents unless there's clear evidence of abuse or severe neglect. Absence, even long-term absence, doesn't automatically terminate parental rights. If Cassie shows up with a stable home, a new husband with financial resources, and claims she's reformed and ready to parent, judges often want to give her a chance. Victor felt his jaw clench. What about what Jay wants? Jay's 9, right? His preference will be considered, but he's not old enough for his wishes to be determinative. The judge will listen, but ultimately, they'll make what they believe is the best decision for him. So what do we do? Floyd pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "We build the strongest case possible. Document everything. Every school event you attended, every doctor's appointment, every moment you've been there for Jay. We get character witnesses. We get Jay's teacher to testify about his stability and progress. We get medical records showing you've been the one ensuring his health and welfare. And if that's not enough," Floyd looked up, his expression serious, "then we dig into Cassie's life. If your theory about the money is correct, we need to prove it. We need to show the court that her sudden reappearance isn't about Jay's welfare. It's about financial gain. That's the kind of thing that can sway a judge. How do we prove something like that? We start with what we know. The timeline is suspicious. Mother-in-law dies. Trust is established. Cassie shows up wanting her kid back. We subpoena financial records. We look at the trust documents. We find out exactly who benefits and under what conditions. We might need to hire a private investigator. Victor thought about his retirement savings, carefully managed over decades of teaching. He'd been planning to use some of it to start a college fund for Jay. Whatever it costs, he said. Floyd nodded. I'll start the paperwork today. We'll file for legal guardianship based on abandonment. That'll at least force this in a court, make Cassie prove she deserves to have Jay back. It won't stop her from seeing him, but it'll buy us time and put the burden of proof on her. She said they'd give me 2 weeks before taking him. Empty threat, probably. They can't just take him without a court order. If they try, call the police immediately. You've been his primary caregiver for 5 years. That counts for something. No judge is going to let her just walk in and take him. As Victor stood to leave, Floyd added one more thing. Document everything from this point forward. Every interaction with Cassie, every phone call, every visit. Dates, times, what was said. If she's as calculating as you think, she'll slip up eventually. We just need to catch it. Victor returned home to find Adrienne O'Connell on his porch, waiting. She'd brought coffee and the kind of determined expression that reminded Victor why she was one of his favorite people. I heard, she said simply. One of Jay's classmates saw the confrontation yesterday. Kid told his mom, mom told me. Small towns, Victor said with a weak smile. Small schools, Adrienne corrected. Listen, I want to help. Whatever you need, testimony, documentation, someone to talk to. Jay is one of the best kids I've ever taught, and that's because of you. I won't let her just take him. They sat on the porch, and Victor filled her in on everything Floyd had said. Adrienne listened carefully, her teacher brain processing. What about Jay? She asked. How's he handling this? Better than I expected. Worse than I hoped. He's scared but trying not to show it. He's his grandfather's grandson. Adrienne smiled. That boy is tough. Smart too. Victor, I've been teaching for 20 years. I've seen a lot of kids from broken homes, complicated situations. Jay is different. He's resilient, thoughtful, kind. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because someone cares enough to raise him right. I just did what needed doing. Exactly. You stepped up when your daughter stepped out. The court needs to see that. She pulled out her phone. I'm going to start writing everything down. Every parent-teacher conference you attended, every time you volunteered for field trips, every conversation we've had about Jay's progress. I'll have a full report ready for your lawyer. After Adrienne left, Victor found Jay in his room, ostensibly doing homework but clearly distracted. The boy looked up when Victor knocked on the open door. Hey, buddy. How are you doing? Jay set down his pencil. I've been thinking about why Mom really came back. It's not about me, is it? Victor came into the room and sat on the edge of Jay's bed. His grandson's perceptiveness never ceased to amaze and worry him. Why do you think that? Because if it was about me, she would have come back sooner, or at least called. But she didn't do anything until now, which means something changed. Something that makes me useful to her. Jay's eyes were too old for his face. What is it? Money. Victor saw no point in lying. Jay was smart enough to figure out anyway, and treating him like a child would only insult his intelligence. Probably yes. Her new husband's mother died and left money. There's a trust for grandchildren. I think they want you to be legally recognized so you can access it. Jay absorbed this quietly. So, she doesn't actually want me. She wants what I'm worth. Jay, it's okay, Grandpa. It actually makes it easier. How so? Because I was worried maybe I should give her another chance. Maybe I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. But if this is just about money, then I don't have to feel bad. She's just using me, and people who use other people don't deserve second chances. The cold logic of it broke Victor's heart a little. 9 years old, and already understanding the mercenary nature of some people's love. You're allowed to be sad about it anyway, Victor said gently. You're allowed to wish your mom was different. I know, but wishing doesn't change anything. You taught me that too. Jay picked up his pencil again. So what's the plan? We fight. We show the court that your home is here with me. We prove that she's not fit to be your parent. And if we lose, Victor met his grandson's eyes. We won't. But if we do, then we keep fighting. Appeals, custody arrangements, whatever it takes. I won't let you go without exhausting every option. I promise you that. Jay nodded slowly. Then he opened his desk drawer and pulled out a worn notebook, his journal, the one he'd been keeping for years. Grandpa, I've been writing things down. Everything I remember about when Mom left, every time I wish she'd call, every birthday she missed. All of it. I thought maybe someday I'd want to remember, or maybe I'd want to forget, and I'd need to burn it or something. He held the journal out. But maybe it can help now. Maybe someone should know what it was really like. Victor took the journal carefully. Are you sure? This is private. It's evidence. You said smart people know the value of documentation. Well, I documented. Now let's use it. That night, after Jay was asleep, Victor sat in his study and read his grandson's journal from beginning to end. It started shortly after Cassie left, when Jay was still learning to write properly. Mommy said she'd be back on Monday, but today is Wednesday, and she's not here. Grandpa says she's busy. I miss her. The entries progressed, becoming more articulate, more painful. My birthday was yesterday. Grandpa made a cake, and we had a party, just the two of us. He sang both verses of Happy Birthday to make it longer. I kept looking at the door, hoping Mom would surprise me. She didn't. Grandpa pretended not to notice I was crying. And eventually, they became sharp, observant, almost clinical. It's been 873 days since Mom left. I calculated it. That's more than 2 years. I think Grandpa still hopes she'll come back, but I don't anymore. I learned in science that you can't count on variables that have never shown up in any test. Mom's a variable that doesn't exist in my equation anymore. The most recent entries from the past few days showed Jay's analytical mind at work. Mom showed up today. She didn't look like Mom. She looked like someone playing Mom in a movie. Everything about her seemed fake. The way she talked, the way she smiled, even the way she said my name. Grandpa says people can change, but I don't think she changed. I think she just got better at pretending. Seth, her new husband, gave me bad vibes. He looked at me like I was a thing he needed to acquire, not a person he wanted to know. And the final entry from yesterday, asterisk, I'm scared Grandpa might lose this fight. Not because he's not strong enough or smart enough, but because the law doesn't always make sense. I've been reading about custody cases online Grandpa doesn't know. Lots of kids get sent back to parents who hurt them or left them. I don't understand why courts think DNA matters more than love. But if I have to go with Mom, I won't make it easy. She wants to use me? Fine. I can use this situation too. Grandpa taught me chess. He taught me that sometimes you sacrifice a piece to protect the king. If I'm the piece that has to move, I'll make sure it's a move that protects Grandpa. I won't let her win. I've got this. Victor closed the journal, his throat tight. His 9-year-old grandson was already planning defensive strategies, already thinking 3 moves ahead. It was brilliant and heartbreaking in equal measure, but also gave Victor an idea. He pulled out his phone and called Floyd Koch's personal number. When the lawyer answered, groggy, Victor didn't apologize for the late hour. Floyd, I need you to file the guardianship paperwork immediately, and I need you to add something to our strategy. What's that? We let Jay testify, not just a preference statement, but real testimony. I have his journal, 5 years of documentation from the perspective of the child who was abandoned. It's powerful, Floyd. The court needs to hear it directly from him. Victor, that's risky. Putting a 9-year-old on the stand can backfire. Cassie's lawyer will argue you coached him, that it's traumatic. Jay can handle it. Trust me. And more than that, he wants to. He told me tonight he's ready to fight. There was a long pause on the other end. Finally, Floyd said, let me think about how to position it. But Victor, if we do this, we need to be sure. Once Jay testifies, there's no going back. Cassie will know exactly how much he doesn't want to be with her. She already knows. She just doesn't care. Over the next week, both sides prepared for battle. Cassie and Seth's lawyer, a smooth-talking man named Bradley Carr, filed a petition for immediate custody transfer based on Cassie's parental rights. Floyd countered with their guardianship petition, citing abandonment and Jay's best interests. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks out. In the meantime, the judge ordered supervised visits. Cassie could see Jay 3 times a week for 2 hours each visit, with Victor present. The first visit was excruciating. Cassie showed up at a local park with shopping bags full of expensive toys and games, trying to buy Jay's affection. Jay was polite but distant, treating his mother like a stranger trying too hard. Don't you like the new tablet? Cassie asked, frustration creeping into her voice. It's the latest model. All your friends probably have one. It's nice, thank you, Jay said formally. You could at least seem excited. I'm not good at pretending to feel things I don't feel. Grandpa says honest feelings are better than fake enthusiasm. Seth, who'd been sitting on a nearby bench scrolling through his phone, looked up at that. Kid, your grandfather has filled your head with a lot of opinions about your mother. Maybe you should think for yourself. Jay met Seth's eyes with unsettling directness. I do think for myself. That's the problem. Victor, sitting on the next bench over, felt pride mixed with concern. Jay was holding his ground, but that same backbone that made Victor proud might work against them if the judge saw it as a child being influenced to reject his mother. The second visit went no better. Cassie tried a different approach, going for emotional manipulation. Jay, baby, I know I made mistakes, but I'm your mother. Don't you think people deserve second chances? Huh? How many second chances? Jay asked. Because you already had about 1,825 first chances. That's one for every day you could have called, but didn't. Cassie's eyes filled with tears. Real or performed, Victor couldn't tell. This is what you've taught him? She turned on Victor. To hate his own mother? I've taught him to value consistency and honesty, Victor replied calmly. Whatever conclusions he's drawn are his own. By the third visit, Cassie had dropped all pretense of patience. She and Seth showed up late. She spent most of the time on her phone, and when Jay refused to engage with her attempts at conversation, she snapped. You know what, Jay? You're being a brat. I'm trying here, and you're just being difficult because your grandfather has poisoned you against me. No, Jay said quietly. You poisoned me against you 5 years ago when you left and never came back. That was when Victor decided the visits were doing more harm than good. He called Floyd and requested they be suspended until the hearing. The judge denied the request, but reduced the visits to once a week. Meanwhile, Victor was gathering his army of witnesses. Dr. Charles Silva provided medical records showing Victor as the sole guardian bringing Jay to appointments, managing his health care, ensuring his well-being. The pediatrician also wrote a letter detailing Jay's emotional and physical health, noting the stability of his home environment. Mrs. Dolores Hensley, the school counselor, provided notes from Jay's first year when he needed support processing his mother's abandonment. Her records showed how Victor had been proactive in getting Jay help, attending counseling sessions with him, ensuring his emotional needs were met. Adrian O'Connell compiled a comprehensive report of Jay's academic progress, Victor's involvement in his education, and the boy's social development. She highlighted Jay's leadership in class, his empathy for other students, his maturity, all traits she attributed directly to Victor's parenting. Floyd also hired a private investigator named Everett Henderson, a former police detective who specialized in financial investigations. Everett's job was to trace exactly how Marjorie Cherry's trust worked and who would benefit from Jay being legally recognized as part of the family. It's not clean, Everett reported back after a week of digging. The trust is complicated, lots of legal language. But the bottom line is this. There's about $2 million set aside specifically for direct descendants and legally recognized step-grandchildren for educational and welfare purposes. The money can be accessed for approved expenses starting when the kids turn 13, with full distribution at 21. So if Jay is legally Cassie's son, and Cassie is married to Seth, then Jay is Seth's stepson, making him Marjorie's step-grandson, which makes him eligible for the trust. Now, Cassie and Seth can't touch the money directly, but they can be appointed as trustees managing it for Jay's benefit. And trustees can be reimbursed for expenses, can make decisions about how funds are used, which gives them access to a lot of money in Jay's name. Exactly. And here's the kicker. I talked to Marjorie Cherry's estate lawyer off the record. He mentioned that before she died, Marjorie specifically asked about Seth's family situation. Seth told her he had a stepson from Cassie's previous relationship. Marjorie was apparently excited about having a grandchild, asked to meet him. Seth kept putting it off, saying the custody situation was complicated. She died before ever meeting Jay. So Seth lied to his dying mother about his relationship with Jay. Seems that way. And now that she's gone and the trust is established, suddenly Cassie wants her son back. The timeline is too convenient to be coincidence. This was exactly what Victor needed. Proof that Cassie's motivations were financial, not maternal. But Everett had more. I also looked into Cassie's financial situation before she married Seth. She was broke. Not struggling, broke. Evicted from 2 apartments, maxed out credit cards, working cash jobs under the table to avoid wage garnishment. Then she meets Seth, and within 6 months, everything's cleaned up. Debts paid, new car, new clothes, new life. Seth paid her debts? That's my guess. And I'm betting it wasn't out of the kindness of his heart. Cassie needed a financial rescue. Seth needed a ready-made family to access his mother's trust. They used each other, and now they're trying to use Jay. Floyd reviewed all the evidence with satisfaction. This is good, really good. We can paint a clear picture of motive. The question is whether the judge will see past Cassie's biological rights to recognize what's really happening here. The preliminary hearing arrived on a cold November morning. Victor wore his best suit, the one he'd bought for retirement parties and funerals. Jay wore slacks and a button-down shirt, looking painfully small and formal. Remember, Floyd coached them in the hallway outside the courtroom. Just tell the truth. Answer the questions clearly, don't volunteer extra information, and stay calm. Cassie's lawyer is going to try to rattle you both. Don't let him. The courtroom was smaller than Victor expected, more like a conference room than the dramatic spaces he'd seen on TV. Judge Dean Walters was a man in his 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Cassie and Seth sat at the opposite table with Bradley Carr, their lawyer. Cassie had dressed conservatively, probably on Carr's advice, looking like a concerned mother rather than the polished socialite she'd become. Seth wore an expensive suit and an expression of practiced concern. The hearing began with both lawyers presenting their opening positions. Carr went first, painting Cassie as a young mother who'd made mistakes but had turned her life around. She was now stable, married, financially secure, and ready to provide her son with every opportunity. Victor, while well-meaning, was an elderly man in his 70s who couldn't possibly keep up with a growing boy's needs. Floyd countered with the abandonment angle, laying out 5 years of documentation proving Victor had been Jay's sole consistent parent. He introduced the medical records, school reports, counselor's notes, all showing a stable, loving home environment that Jay deserved to keep. Then came the testimonies. Dr. Silva spoke about Victor's dedication to Jay's health. Adrian O'Connell described Jay's academic excellence and Victor's involvement. Mrs. Hensley discussed the emotional support Victor had provided during difficult times. When Carr cross-examined them, he hammered the same point. But you'd agree that a child is generally better off with their biological parent, wouldn't you? That reunification is the goal when possible. The witnesses had to agree, hedgingly. Legally, it was true, but Floyd had coached them to add caveats. Only when the parent has proven they're capable and committed, Dr. Silva said. Only when it serves the child's best interests, Adrian added. Then it was Cassie's turn to testify. She took the stand looking remorseful and hopeful, the perfect image of a reformed mother. Under Carr's questioning, she explained her absence. I was young, overwhelmed, and dealing with depression after my divorce, Cassie said, dabbing at her eyes. I made a terrible mistake leaving Jay with my father. I thought it would be temporary, just until I got back on my feet. But I was in such a dark place, I didn't realize how much time was passing. Every day I thought about calling, but I was so ashamed. I didn't think Jay would want to hear from me. It was a good performance. Victor had to give her that. She sounded genuine, vulnerable. But you've changed now? Carr prompted. Completely. Meeting Seth saved my life. He helped me get therapy, deal with my issues. He showed me what a real partner looks like, what a stable home looks like. And I realized I needed to be that for Jay. He deserves a mother who's present and capable. And I'm finally in a position to be that person. When Floyd cross-examined, he came at her sideways. Ms. Cherry, you mentioned being in a dark place during those 5 years. Did you seek any professional help during that time? Well, not formally, but so no therapist, no doctor, no counselor? No, but And during those 5 years, did you ever send money to help support Jay? I was financially struggling. So, with no financial support, did you send birthday cards? Christmas presents? I was afraid. That's a no. Did you ever call your father to ask how Jay was doing? I knew he was in good hands. Another no. So for 5 years, you provided no financial support, no communication, no acknowledgement of your son's existence. Is that correct? Cassie's composure was cracking. I was sick. I was dealing with mental health issues. And yet you never sought treatment for those issues, never documented your condition, never attempted to get help that might have made you capable of parenting. I was doing the best I could. Ms. Cherry, isn't it true that you only decided to do your best after marrying into money and discovering your son could be worth $2 million? Carr was on his feet immediately. Objection, speculation, and inflammatory. Your Honor, Floyd said smoothly, I'm about to connect this directly to motive. Judge Walters looked interested. I'll allow it. But make your point quickly, Mr. Koch. Floyd pulled out Everett's report and began walking through the timeline. Marjorie Cherry's death, the trust establishment, Seth's claims about having a stepson, Cassie's sudden reappearance. He introduced the financial records showing Cassie's debts paid off shortly after meeting Seth, the timing of their marriage, the structure of the trust. So your financial situation improved dramatically after meeting Seth. And now you're seeking custody of a child you abandoned 5 years ago, a child who would make you eligible to manage a $2 million trust. Does that about sum it up? Cassie's face was flushed. That's not why I'm here. I love my son. You love the idea of controlling his trust fund. Objection. Carr was livid. Sustained, Judge Walters said, but he was writing notes furiously. When Victor took the stand, he spoke plainly about the last 5 years. The sacrifices, yes, but mostly the joys. Teaching Jay to ride a bike. Helping him with science projects. Reading together every night. The first time Jay beat him at chess. The way they'd build a life together, not out of obligation, but out of love. Carr tried to make Victor seem too old, too set in his ways. Mr. Barton, you're 73 years old. Don't you think a younger, more energetic parent might better serve Jay's needs? I think, Victor said carefully, that what Jay needs is someone who's been there for him every single day for 5 years. Someone who knows his nightmares and his dreams. Someone who's earned a right to be called his parent, not because of biology, but because of presence. When it was time for Jay to testify, Floyd had petitioned for it to be done in chambers. Just the judge, the lawyers, both parties, and Jay. No audience, less pressure. Judge Walters agreed. Jay sat in a chair that was too big for him, his feet not quite touching the floor. But his voice was steady when he answered questions. Jay, Floyd began gently. Can you tell the judge who takes care of you day to day? Grandpa. He makes my breakfast, packs my lunch, helps with homework. He takes me to school and picks me up. He comes to my soccer games and my school concerts. He's the one who's there. And your mother? Do you have a relationship with her? No. I did when I was little, but then she left. I haven't seen her or heard from her in 5 years until last month. How did that make you feel? Jay thought about it. Confused at first, then sad, then eventually just nothing. It's hard to miss someone who doesn't want to be found. Carr's cross-examination was more aggressive. Jay, has your grandfather ever said negative things about your mother? He said she made bad choices. That's not negative if it's true. Has he told you that you should stay with him instead of your mother? He asked me what I wanted. I told him I wanted to stay. That was my choice. But you're 9 years old. Don't you think adults might know better than you what's best for you? Jay met the lawyer's eyes. Some adults. The ones who've actually been around and know me. Your mother says she loves you and wants to give you a good life. Don't you think you should give her a chance? She had 5 years of chances. 1,825 of them. She didn't take any. Why should I believe this time is different? Because people can change, Jay. People can also pretend to change when there's money involved. The room went silent. Even Carr seemed momentarily thrown. What makes you think this is about money? The lawyer asked. Jay pulled out his journal, the one he'd given Victor permission to share. Because I keep track of things. I wrote down dates, patterns, observations. Mom disappeared when I was just her responsibility. She reappeared right after Seth's mother died and left a trust for grandchildren. The timing isn't a coincidence. Judge Walters leaned forward. Son, did someone tell you about this trust? Grandpa told me after I asked why Mom came back now. But I'd already figured out something was wrong. People who really want their kids don't wait 5 years and then show up with lawyers. They show up with apologies. Carr tried to recover. Jay, what if you're wrong? What if your mother really has changed and wants to be part of your life? Then she can prove it the same way Grandpa did. By being there. Not for one weekend or one court hearing, but every day. For years. That's what earns the right to be called a parent. After Jay's testimony, Judge Walters called for a short recess. When they reconvened, he addressed the room. This is one of the more complicated cases I've seen, and I don't say that lightly. On one hand, we have biological parental rights, which this court takes seriously. On the other hand, we have clear abandonment and a child who's thrived under his grandfather's care. He looked at Cassie. Ms. Cherry, I'm troubled by the timing of your reappearance and the financial motivations that appear to underlie it. I'm also troubled by your complete lack of contact with your son for 5 years. However, I'm not prepared to terminate your parental rights without further investigation. Then he turned to Victor. Mr. Barton, you've clearly provided excellent care for your grandson. The documentation is thorough, the witness is compelling, and Jay himself is a credit to your parenting. He paused, reviewing his notes. Here's my ruling for now. This is not a final custody determination, but a temporary order while we investigate further. Jay will remain in Mr. Barton's custody. Ms. Cherry, you will have supervised visitation once a week, gradually increasing if Jay shows willingness to engage. Cassie started to protest, but the judge raised his hand. I'm also ordering a full investigation into the allegations regarding the trust fund. I want financial records, trust documents, everything. If this court determines that your motivation for seeking custody is financial rather than maternal, that will weigh heavily in the final decision. He looked at Jay one more time. Son, you're a smart kid. Too smart for your own good. Maybe. But I want you to know, whatever happens, the adults here are going to make sure you're safe and cared for. Understood. Jay nodded. Yes, sir. Good. We'll reconvene in 30 days for a follow-up hearing. Until then, status quo remains. Court adjourned. As they filed out of the courtroom, Victor put his hand on Jay's shoulder. His grandson looked up at him. Did we win? Jay asked quietly. We survived round 1, Victor said. The fight's not over yet. Seth stopped them in the hallway, his practice charm completely gone. This isn't finished, old man. We'll appeal, we'll keep coming back, and eventually we'll get what we came for. And what's that? Victor asked calmly. Jay, or the money? Seth's expression turned cold. Careful. You're not the only one who can play games. The difference is, I'm playing for the right reasons. As they walked to the car, Jay was quiet, processing. Victor didn't push him to talk. Sometimes silence was what was needed. But as they pulled into their driveway, Jay finally spoke. Grandpa, I've been thinking about how to make sure we win. Really win, not just delay. Victor glanced at his grandson, seeing something calculating in his expression. What do you have in mind? I've got this, Jay said, echoing the words from his journal. But I need your help. They went inside, and Jay spread his journal on the kitchen table. But he also pulled out his tablet, the expensive one Cassie had bought him, which he'd barely touched. She doesn't know I'm smart enough to understand what she's doing, Jay said. She thinks I'm just a sad kid she can manipulate. That's our advantage. Jay, what are you thinking? I'm thinking we need proof. Real proof that she and Seth are only here for the money. And I'm thinking the way to get it is to make them believe they're winning. Victor studied his grandson's face, seeing a mind working several steps ahead. Explain. The next visit I act different. I act like I'm softening, like maybe I'm starting to consider giving her another chance. She'll think her strategy is working. People get careless when they think they're winning. You want to play along? I want to get her to admit the truth. People say things they shouldn't when they think they're safe. If I can get her to talk about the money, about why she really came back, if I can record it, that's proof the judge can't ignore. Victor felt torn between pride at Jay's strategic thinking and concern about putting his grandson in such a position. Jay, that's a lot to ask of you. It means spending time with someone who hurt you, pretending to trust her. I know. But Grandpa, I'm already hurt. She already did the worst thing she could do to me. Nothing she says or does now can make that worse. But if I can use that pain to protect you, to protect our home, then at least it means something. You're 9 years old. This shouldn't be on you. But it is on me. It's literally about me. And I'd rather be part of fixing it than just a trophy they fight over. Jay's expression was determined. You taught me that smart people document things. Well, I'm going to document proof that she's a liar. I just need you to trust me. Victor thought about all the ways this could go wrong. But he also thought about the boy sitting across from him, brilliant, resilient, and absolutely right that he deserved agency in his own fate. Okay, Victor said finally. But we do this smart. We bring Floyd in, we make sure we're not breaking any laws, and we have backup plans. Deal. Deal. Over the next week, they planned carefully. Floyd was initially hesitant about the idea of Jay essentially baiting Cassie into incriminating herself. But he agreed that if Jay could get her to admit her true motivations on record, it would be powerful evidence. The key, Floyd explained, is that it has to be her volunteering the information. Jay can't entrap her or trick her into saying something. He just has to create an environment where she feels comfortable enough to speak honestly. They got Jay a small recording device disguised as a watch, legal for a minor to use in a one-party consent state. The plan was for Jay to wear it during his next supervised visit and to try to steer conversation toward Cassie's real motivations. The following Saturday, Cassie picked Jay up for their court-order visit. Victor watched from the window as his grandson climbed into the BMW, looking smaller than usual, vulnerable. It took everything in him not to run out and pull Jay back to safety. The visit was at a local pizza place, with Victor sitting several tables away as the court-required supervisor. He couldn't hear the conversation, but he watched Jay's body language. The boy was a natural actor when he needed to be. Later, in the car ride home, Jay played back the recording. His voice on the tape sounded younger, uncertain, exactly what Cassie would expect from a child starting to waver. I don't know, Mom. It's confusing. I'm mad at you, but also, I don't know. Cassie's voice, sympathetic and warm. I know, baby. You have every right to be confused. I messed up so badly, but I promise I'm different now. Seth seems nice. He is. He's so excited to be your stepdad. He's already talking about all the things you guys can do together. He wants to take you to basketball games, teach you to golf. Really? Why would I want to do that? He doesn't even know me. A pause. Then Cassie's voice, slightly less warm. Well, Seth is he's a generous person. He believes in family. Even family that's not really his. You will be his. Once you're living with us, he'll legally adopt you. Then you'll be a real cherry, with all the benefits that comes with. What benefits? Another pause, longer this time. Just, being part of a successful family. Having opportunities. Like money. Cassie laughed nervously. No, not just money. Although we can give you things your grandfather can't. A bigger room, better schools, travel. Seth's mom left money, right? Grandpa said something about a trust. The recording caught Cassie's sharp intake of breath. When she spoke again, her voice was careful. Your grandfather shouldn't have told you about that. So it's true. It's complicated, Jay. Yes, Seth's mother set up a trust for grandchildren. And yes, once you're officially part of our family, you'd have access to it for college and things like that. How much money? That's not important. But it is, isn't it? That's why you came back now. Not because you missed me, but because I'm worth something. The recording went quiet. Victor could imagine Cassie's face, caught between denial and calculation. Jay, sweetie, that's not fair. Yes, the trust exists, and yes, it would benefit you. But that's a good thing. It means I can give you the life you deserve. The fact that there's money involved doesn't mean I don't love you. But would you have come back if there wasn't money? Another long pause. I was always going to come back eventually. That's not what I asked. Cassie's voice hardened. Look, I'm trying to be honest with you here. Yes, the trust made it possible for me to come back sooner rather than later. Seth and I discussed it, and we realized we could provide for you properly now. Is that so terrible? So you talked about the money before you came to get me. We talked about being able to support you, yes. And the trust means you can support me with a lot of money that's technically mine, but you'd control. Where are you getting this from? Your grandfather has been poisoning you. Nobody poisoned me. I can read. I looked up how trusts work. Parents or guardians can be trustees, which means they control how the money is spent. You'd be in charge of my $2 million. The recording captured Cassie sharp. How do you know it's $2 million? Before she caught herself. Lucky guess, Jay's voice said, with a hint of triumph that made Victor smile despite everything. The rest of the recording was damage control from Cassie, backtracking and trying to reframe the conversation. But the essential admission was there. She discussed the trust with Seth before coming back for Jay. She'd essentially confirmed that the money was a factor, possibly the primary factor, in her sudden desire for custody. Floyd listened to the recording 3 times, making notes. "This is good," he said finally. "Really good." She didn't explicitly say, "I'm only here for the money," but she came damn close. Combined with the timeline evidence we already have, this paints a clear picture of motive. Will it be enough? Victor asked. For the judge? Probably. But Cassie's lawyer will argue this was taken out of context. That Jay was leading her on, that a child doesn't understand the complexities of adult financial decisions. Floyd looked at Jay. "You did well, son. But you need to be prepared. When this comes out in court, your mother is going to be angry. Really angry." "I know," Jay said quietly. "But she's already taken almost everything she could from me. I'm not going to let her take Grandpa too." The follow-up hearing was scheduled for mid-December. In the weeks leading up to it, Cassie's visits became increasingly tense. She knew something had shifted, could feel Jay's performance for what it was, but couldn't quite figure out the trap she'd walked into. Seth, meanwhile, had dropped all pretense of being friendly. At one point, he cornered Victor outside the supervised visit location. "Whatever you're planning, it won't work. We have rights, and we have resources. You're just an old man with limited time and limited money. We can outlast you." "Maybe," Victor said, "but you're forgetting something important." "What's that?" "I actually care about Jay. You just care about what he's worth. That gives me a kind of power you'll never have. I'll never give up." December brought cold rain and darker evenings, but also a kind of clarity. Floyd filed their updated petition with the new evidence, including the recording, the financial timeline, and character witnesses who could speak to Cassie's real priorities. Carr fired back with motions to suppress the recording, arguing it was obtained through deception by a minor. Floyd countered that Jay was simply having a conversation with his mother, that no deception was involved, and that the truth of what was said mattered more than how it was obtained. Judge Walters reviewed everything in chambers before the hearing. When they finally convened in court, he looked tired but resolved. "I've reviewed all the new evidence," he began, "and I've made my decision." The courtroom was silent. Victor felt Jay's hand slip into his, small and trusting. "Ms. Cherry, I find that your primary motivation for seeking custody is financial, not maternal. The evidence is clear that you had no contact with your son for 5 years until the existence of a substantial trust made him valuable to you. The recording, which I'm admitting into evidence, supports this conclusion." Cassie's face went pale. "Your Honor, that recording was a child having a conversation with his mother. A conversation in which you admitted discussing the financial benefits of custody before making any effort to re-establish contact." Judge Walters looked at her sternly. "You abandoned your son for 5 years. You provided no support, financial or emotional. You made no attempt to maintain a relationship. And now you want him back primarily because he's worth money. That's not parenting. That's using a child." He turned to Victor. "Mr. Barton, I'm granting you full legal guardianship of Jay Barton. Ms. Cherry's parental rights are hereby suspended pending a further review in 18 months. If she can demonstrate genuine rehabilitation, consistent involvement in Jay's life, and motivations based on his welfare rather than financial gain, we can revisit the custody arrangement at that time." "Your Honor, we intend to appeal," Carr began. "You're welcome to try, but I'm confident in this decision. Jay stays with his grandfather." He looked at Jay one more time. "Son, you're one of the bravest kids I've ever seen in my courtroom. Don't let this situation make you cynical. There are good people in the world, Like your grandfather, who show up and stay. Remember that. Yes, sir, Jay said. I will. As I left the courtroom, Cassie tried one last time. Jay, please. I know I messed up, but I'm still your mother. Don't I deserve a chance? Jay looked at her, this woman who shared his DNA, but not his life. Maybe you do deserve a chance, he said, but I don't have to be the one to give it to you. Not anymore. In the parking lot, Seth was waiting by their BMW on the phone, probably already calling their appeal lawyer. He saw them and ended his call. This isn't over, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The money was out of reach now, and Victor suspected Seth's interest in Cassie's abandoned son would fade quickly. Yeah, it is, Jay said, stepping forward. You wanted to use me to get money you didn't earn. You thought I was too young to understand, too easy to manipulate. But here's what you didn't count on. Grandpa taught me to be smart. He taught me to document everything. He taught me that people who really care about you prove it through actions, not words. Jay pulled out his journal, the same one he'd been keeping for 5 years. I wrote it all down. Every day you and Mom came to visit, every fake smile, every expensive gift you thought would buy my loyalty. I noted when you checked your phone instead of listening to me. I wrote down the exact moment Mom looked more excited about the judge's decision than about seeing me. All of it. He held up the journal. This isn't just evidence for court. This is the story of what you tried to do and how it failed. And someday, when I'm older, I'm going to make sure other kids know what to watch out for. How to recognize when adults are using them. How to protect themselves. Seth's face was red. You little. Careful, Victor said quietly, stepping beside his grandson. Threatening a minor in a courthouse parking lot would be a bad look for your next appeal. They left Seth standing there and walked to Victor's old sedan. As they drove home, Jay was quiet, staring out the window. You okay? Victor asked. I'm sad, Jay admitted. Not because I lost her. I lost her 5 years ago. But I'm sad that she was never who I needed her to be. That's not your fault. I know. You've told me that 100 times, and I believe you. But it still hurts. It's supposed to hurt. It means you're human, that you have capacity for love even when it's not returned. That's not weakness, buddy. That's strength. Jay thought about that. Grandpa, thank you. For what? For being the one who stayed. For showing me what real parenting looks like. For teaching me I was worth fighting for. Jay's voice cracked slightly. I know you didn't plan on raising a kid again at your age, but I'm really glad you did. Victor's eyes stung with tears he didn't try to hide. Best surprise of my life, kiddo. That evening, they had pancakes for dinner, a Saturday tradition on a Tuesday, because sometimes you had to celebrate the victories when they came. Jay made them, having learned Victor's techniques over the years, and they were nearly as good as Victor's own. As they ate, Jay asked, what happens now? Will she really leave us alone? For a while, probably. The appeal process will take months, and honestly, I don't think Seth will stick around for it. Once he realizes the trust is out of reach, his interest in playing stepdad will disappear. And Mom, your mom, Victor thought carefully. I hope she gets help. I hope she figures out her life. But that's her journey, not yours. You don't have to fix her or save her. You just have to live your life. With you. With me. For as long as you want. Forever sounds good. Victor smiled. Forever it is. The appeal never materialized. 3 weeks after the hearing, Everett Henderson called with information. Cassie and Seth had separated. The marriage was over less than 8 months after it began. Seth had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, which probably meant no access to trust fund, no point in staying married. Cassie sent one email to Victor, brief and bitter. You turned my son against me. I hope you're happy. He didn't respond. There was nothing to say that hadn't already been said in court. But 6 months later, a different email arrived. This one was longer, written at 2 a.m. based on the timestamp, and slightly more honest. Dad, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed any right. I had to be Jay's mother. I wanted to blame you, to say you poisoned him against me, but the truth is I did that myself. I was selfish and weak, and I ran away from the hardest thing I'd ever had to do, be a parent. Seth was never about love. He was about having someone else solve my problems, and when you took away the trust option, he left. I'm broke again, alone again, And I can't even be angry because I did this to myself. I don't expect Jay to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this whole email. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not because it changes anything, but because it's true. Take care, my son. You're better at it than I ever was. Cassie. Victor read it 3 times, then saved it in a folder. Someday, when Jay was older, he might want to see it. Or maybe not. That would be his choice. Jay continued to thrive. He joined the chess club at school and started winning local tournaments. His teacher Adrian nominated him for a gifted student program, which he got into despite being a year younger than most participants. He made friends, had sleepovers, lived a normal life. But he also kept his journal, documenting not pain anymore, but joy. New entries about winning chess matches, about learning to cook with Victor, about the day Victor officially adopted him, so he'd be legally Victor's son, not just his grandson. On the anniversary of Cassie's abandonment, which they'd started calling Family Day, instead, Victor and Jay had a tradition of making a list of things they were grateful for. This year, Jay's list included Grandpa's terrible jokes are Saturday pancakes, that I'm smart enough to know the difference between people who show up and people who just show up when they want something, that I have a home. Victor's list was simpler. Jay. Just Jay. Everything good in my life comes back to him. They framed their lists and hung them in the kitchen, next to 5 years' worth of other Family Day lists. A wall of gratitude, of survival, of love that had been tested and proven true. The final hearing to permanently terminate Cassie's parental rights came and went with little drama. She didn't contest it. Her lawyer appeared briefly to formally file her consent. And just like that, it was over. Victor was officially Jay's father in the eyes of the law. How do you feel? Adrian asked Victor at the school's spring concert, where Jay was playing piano, another skill he'd picked up with frightening speed. Relieved, grateful, terrified I'm going to screw it up somehow. You won't. You've already proven that. She watched Jay perform with pride. That boy's going to do amazing things, Victor. And it's because you didn't give up on him. He didn't give up on me either. This was a team effort. On stage, Jay finished his piece and looked directly at Victor, grinning. Victor gave him a thumbs up, his heart full. After the concert, they went for ice cream, another tradition, this time celebrating Jay's performance. You know what's weird? Jay said, chocolate ice cream, smearing his chin. I used to think about Mom all the time. What she was doing, if she thought about me, if she'd come back. But now, I don't. I think about tomorrow's math test and the chess tournament next week and whether we should get a dog. Should we get a dog? I don't know. Do you want a dog? I asked you first. But it's a family decision. Exactly. So we decide together. They debated the merits of dog ownership all the way home, finally agreeing to visit the shelter the next weekend to just look, which they both knew meant they'd probably come home with a dog. That night, as Victor tucked Jay in a bed, something the almost 10-year-old still allowed because they both needed it, Jay asked one more question. Grandpa, do you think I'll ever forgive her? Mom, I don't know. Maybe. Forgiveness is complicated. But I should, right? People always say you should forgive. People say a lot of things. I think forgiveness is personal. It's something you do for yourself, not for the other person. If you get to a place where forgiving her makes you feel free, then do it. But if holding on to anger protects you, helps you remember your worth, then that's okay too. I don't think I'm angry anymore. I'm just done. Is that the same as forgiveness? Maybe. Or maybe it's something better. Acceptance. Accepting that she is who she is, that you can't change her, and that you're going to be okay anyway. Jay nodded slowly. Yeah, I accept it. And I'm okay. More than okay. Because I've got you. And I've got you. The final chapter of their story, or perhaps just the end of this particular chapter, came on a Saturday morning 2 years after the custody battle ended. Jay was nearly 12 now, taller and more confident, with Victor's steady eyes and his own sharp mind. They were making pancakes together, a ritual so ingrained it required no discussion of whose turn it was to do what. Victor flipped while Jay set the table, both moving in comfortable synchronization. The doorbell rang. I'll get it, Jay said, wiping his hands on a towel. Victor heard the door open, heard a woman's voice, Cassie's voice, say hi, Jay. He moved quickly to the hallway, protective instincts flaring. But Jay was already handling it, standing in the doorway with calm composure. Cassie looked different again. Older, tired, but somehow more real than she'd been during the custody battle. No expensive clothes, no perfect makeup. Just his daughter, looking uncertain. "Mom," Jay acknowledged. "What are you doing here?" I was in town and I thought. I don't know what I thought. I shouldn't have come." She started to turn away. "Wait," Jay said. She turned back, hope and fear warring on her face. "I'm not ready to have you in my life," Jay said carefully. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that. But I don't hate you anymore. I don't really feel anything except sorry that you missed out on being my parent. Grandpa's really good at it. You have liked seeing who I've become." Cassie's eyes filled with tears. "I do see it. And Jay, I am so sorry. You deserve better. You deserved so much better than what I gave you." "Yeah, I did. But I got better anyway. I got Grandpa." Victor stood in the hallway, watching his son, because that's what Jay was now, legally and in every way that mattered. Handle this moment with grace and strength. "I wrote you a letter," Cassie said, pulling an envelope from her purse. "You don't have to read it now, or ever. But it explains some things, apologizes for more things, and it tells you that I'm getting help. Real help. Therapy, support groups. I'm trying to become someone who deserves a second chance, even if I never get one. I'm doing it for me, not because I think it'll change anything between us." Jay took the letter. "Okay. And Jay, your grandfather is the best person I know. I was too stupid to learn from him, but I'm glad you weren't. Take care of each other." "We always do." She nodded, started to say something else, then just gave a small wave and walked back to her car. Old, used, nothing like the BMW. As she drove away, Jay closed the door and looked at the letter. "Want to read it?" Victor asked. "Not yet. Maybe later. Maybe never. But I'll keep it." Jay put the letter on the hall table. Pancakes are probably getting cold. They returned to the kitchen, to their Saturday morning tradition, to their life. Jay ate his pancakes and talked about the chess tournament next week, about the science project he was working on, about whether they should name their new dog. They'd gotten one, a rescue mutt named Einstein. Something cooler. Victor listened, contributed, laughed at appropriate moments. And he thought about how battles don't always end with dramatic victories. Sometimes they end with quiet mornings, with pancakes and plans, and the steady certainty that you fought for the right thing and won. Later that afternoon, while Jay was at a friend's house, Victor sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. Floyd Koch called, checking in as he did occasionally. "How's the kid?" Floyd asked. "Remarkable. Every single day, he's remarkable." "Cassie showed up, huh?" Small town gossip travels fast. Briefly, she left a letter. "Jay handled it better than I would have at his age. Hell, better than I'd handle it now. That's because you raised him right. We raised each other. I think I learned as much from him as he learned from me." After the call ended, Victor thought about the last 7 years, the unexpected phone call that started it all, the abandonment, the battles, the victories. He thought about Jay at 4, small and confused about why his mother hadn't come back. And Jay at 12, confident and clear about his worth and his place in the world. If someone had told Victor at 68 that he'd spend his 70s raising another child, he'd have thought it impossible. But life had a way of giving you what you needed disguised as what you feared. His phone buzzed with a text from Jay. "Einstein learned a new trick. Wait till you see. Also, can we have tacos for dinner? Love you, Grandpa." Victor smiled and texted back. "Tacos sound perfect. Love you too, kiddo." The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In a few hours, Jay would come home full of stories about his day. They'd make dinner together, walk Einstein, maybe play a game of chess. Normal things. Beautiful things. Victor had spent his career teaching history, teaching kids about the big moments that changed the world. But sitting on his porch, waiting for his grandson, his son, to come home, he understood that the most important history wasn't in textbooks. It was in the small moments, the daily choices to show up, to stay, to love someone even when it was hard. Cassie had given birth to Jay, but Victor had helped him become who he was. And Jay had done the same for Victor, transforming a retired teacher heading into quiet solitude into a father again, a protector, a person with purpose. The custody battle was over. The paperwork was filed. The legal rights were secured. But more than that, they'd won something bigger, a family, chosen and fought for, and earned through every small decision over 7 years to keep choosing each other. As Victor sat watching the sunset, he heard the distant sound of a kid's laughter mixed with a dog barking. Jay was coming home, like he always did, like he always would, and Victor was there waiting, like he always was, like he always would be. That was the real victory, not the courtroom decision or the legal documents. Just this, a boy coming home to someone who wanted him there. Every single day, forever. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.